Dawson's Rambles. Hey YouTube, Dawson Ryder here. Today I wanted to talk about a Sentai related topic, and that topic is surrounding that we are currently and we may be continuing for at least a little while longer using legacy / anniversary designs and themes in Sentai. Because as you know, Zenkaiger was an anniversary year. Our first, more major anniversary year since Gokaiger. I know we had KingOhger, but it had been 10 years since then, so we did a full-on anniversary season where we incorporated designs and legacy stories, sort of, and, homages and all that type of stuff. And then we decided to keep the party going, because of course we did, with Dawn Brothers that has continued the use of gears, as well as legacy designs, and even Gokai / Avatar type changes. And rumor has it that the next series, upcoming, KingOhger, may be continuing that in some form as well. I've also heard several people that talk about Sentai rumors say that that's kind of something they want to do behind the scenes, is incorporate sort of more legacy designs and aspects into seasons going forward. And I wanted to talk about my thoughts on that. I mean, I think if you guys follow the channel, you probably know my obvious opinions and that I don't like that. I think that's something Toku's really run into the ground. Again, I'm nobody to tell them what to do. I'm not the target audience. I'm not even the target country. This is just my opinion. Even if I was the target audience, never listen to the fans. But just giving my opinion is that I don't like this running ideas into the ground thing. It's the same thing with the constant rider crossovers. I'm so sick of them. I'm vomiting every 5 minutes. The thing about it is, as I've said this numerous times, and I'm sorry you probably heard me say this, is the idea with stuff like this is the reason I get frustrated is these are cool ideas. They're ideas that are really exciting and fun when they happen once in a blue moon for an anniversary, but then when you do it every day, it's not special anymore, and it's just kind of corporate and boring and shallow, honestly. It's kind of like that old, when everyone's super, no one will be. It's like, when everyone's in anniversary season, no one will be. So my thoughts are, if it were up to me, I would just not do it. I don't like the concept overall. That being said, I think there's ways to find balance, and I understand why they're doing it, and I think it's interesting to think about why they're doing it and what it could mean for the future, both near and far, of Sentai. I mean, something people have brought up a lot in comparison is the Ultraman franchise, which I'm only loosely familiar with. People have recommended it to me a ton over the years. I've tried, guys, it's just not my jam, in case anyone's going to recommend it to me. But I'm loosely familiar with the fact that that series, as far as I know, for the most part, every year incorporates legacy gimmicks and stuff like that and transforming into past heroes in something of some sort. Or at the very least, it's very heavily reoccurring. And that's been working for them very well. And so Sentai could obviously potentially want to replicate that. And they did decently well with Zenkaiger and Dawn Brothers with that. So I think the fact that they did well with that, combined with them looking at Ultraman possibly and saying, hey, they've been doing it, why don't we give that a shot for a while to sort of boost Sentai's numbers? Because everyone knows, it's almost like a meme at this point, the Sentai is canceled meme. I feel like the first rumor in the history of mankind was that Sentai is canceled. And, that's been kind of funny. But it's without question, I think, that in the last handful of years, Sentai's been more in trouble. I don't know how on the verge of cancellation they've ever been, if ever, but we definitely know that their numbers have been down and they've been in a little bit of a weaker spot in some recent years. So they've obviously been trying to do things to boost their numbers, and this sort of legacy anniversary stuff has obviously helped. And again, looking at the success of Ultraman, it's clear to see why they would want to do it. And it's not like the idea of incorporating legacy designs or gimmicks isn't something we haven't been doing to one degree or another already. I mean, not every season includes it in the show, obviously, but after Gokaiger, we did have a bunch of different legacy gimmicks. I mean, KingOhger had legacy batteries, or Legend Sentai batteries. We had ones for the Reshas. I think we had one for the Ninja Stars. Anytime there was an opportunity for a Legend Sentai gimmick in the gimmick line, we usually had one. And I think in a couple cases they did make their way into a movie or a one-shot story or something. Not like it hasn't been around in some capacity, but this is more like it actually showing up in the show to be in it. And like I said, I would prefer not to do it, but I understand why they're doing it. I do have some concerns about it, and I do think there could be interesting things about it. I mean, with Dawn Brothers, to be honest, I'm really grateful that for the most part, it's harmless, honestly. I still think parts of it don't need to be there, but for the most part, it doesn't really interfere with the show being good, in my opinion at least. One of my concerns going into this, it's funny looking back when Dawn Brothers was first announced, I was mixed, because I'm okay, this is kind of cool, a pseudo-sequel series. That's something Sentai usually doesn't do. It'd be nice to break new ground, but at the same time, The nice thing about Sentai is you get a fresh start every year. So if you're sick of the current offering, you're going to get a fresh start. And it seemed like Dawn Brothers was going to continue to be more of the same. But in my opinion, Dawn Brothers feels and is quite different than Zenkaiger, despite some of the aesthetic stuff. So I think Dawn Brothers has been successful with that. Stuff like the monsters being based off of past Sentai is so harmless. You could do that in almost any series because some of them are sometimes even hard for me to like figure out. I'm like, wait, which one is that supposed to be? Even like the little mini bots ones is kind of harmless. You know, it's not a huge deal. The only one that ever takes me out of it is the avatar changes because they use it so infrequently that when they do it, it's like I forget they can do it, so it like takes me out of the moment sometimes. And in the show, outside of the fact that the audience that is familiar with Zenkaiger knows, yeah, they're doing this because it's tied to the gears and Zenkaiger, they make like no reference to it in Dawn Brothers outside of that, which I think makes it a little more awkward. Not that I want them to take up time in the show to address the anniversary crap, but it is weird that they transform into all these different heroes and don't acknowledge it at all. Like it's just another form. It definitely is weird. My ultimate point with that little ramble was it doesn't affect the show for me, but the avatar changes are definitely something that will take me out of the moment. Not to a detrimental degree, but it definitely does. And that's the only thing that honestly really bothers me about the legacy elements within Dawn Brothers. And it's funny to think about how when we first got Zenkaiger, I was like, oh, I'm glad they're not doing Gokai changes because I don't want it to be too samey to Gokaiger. Not opposed to them revisiting it, but just wait till later. And then they did it 1 year later in a non-anniversary series. My point is with all that is, I think it could be okay, and I would still prefer if they didn't do it, but I think it would be okay if they could keep it like Dawn Brothers and just make it balanced so that it doesn't interfere with the show. Whatever the current Sentai is still has a chance to step out their own identity aesthetically and story-wise, and you know, you're always going to feel the merchandising anniversary elements. I know it's not technically an anniversary, but that's what I keep thinking of, but the legacy elements or whatever you want to call it. But so long as they can keep a balance, I think it will be okay. Because my main fear with it is kind of two things. Is one, I don't want it to interfere with each Sentai feeling fresh. Like I said, it's nice getting a fresh start every year. And if every Sentai is doing the same anniversary thing, I'm worried about Sentai losing its identity. You know, it kind of reminds me of how the Neo Saban seasons lost their identity a little bit for me, like individually, because they all had MMPR music, so they all felt like they were coming from the same line and it wasn't different. I know it's a totally different situation, but I think you get what I'm getting at, is I don't want anniversary legacy elements to rob Sentai of their individual identities. And my other concern is, you know, Toku is a toy selling machine, obviously. I feel like I could make a whole video, though, on how I feel that, like, post-Decade, it's way more obvious. Like, all kids' shows, pretty much, or at least most of them, especially in, like, the 80s, 90s, and whatnot, are made to sell toys, that's for sure. But it felt more like, in the past, it was like, hey, this show is going to have, obviously, this type of merchandise you can sell, and you can sell the merchandise. Whereas, like, modern Toku feels more like the toys are driving the bus. But anyway, that's a discussion for another time. My point with this is that, yes, I want to acknowledge that Toku is always meant to sell toys, but there's some times where you can really feel it, and it, in my opinion, will get in the way of the enjoyment of the show. It'll take me out of the moment. It's clearly interrupting the narrative. For me, that happens a lot with writers, with how many more forms and like ability forms and gimmicks we're getting with that, to the point where you have to debut them back to back, and you can really feel the corporate cogs turning. And I'm worried about that happening with Sentai, with the legacy elements, where, you know, Sentai is meant to sell toys too, but for me personally, I don't feel the cogs turning as much in Sentai as I do with Rider, because Rider has far more merchandise to burn through. But I feel like if we have this, I'm worried that as we go, if we continue to have it every year, that it's going to have this feeling of, feeling the larger machine and taking you out of the moment of like, oh, they're clearly doing this for merchandising. And I think that there's a balance between that moment when you can check it in your mind of like, well, yeah, this is meant to sell toys, let's just kind of gloss over it. And sometimes it just becomes a little too much for you and you have a hard time enjoying it. And sometimes that'll happen for me with Rider. And I just don't want that to happen with Sentai, where like the merchandising aspect of having to incorporate all these legacy things, interferes with the flow of the show and takes me out of the moment too much. That's kind of my fear with it. The last thing I wanted to talk about to end on was an idea I presented when I talked about the rumor of this initially about KingOhger having anniversary elements, of something cool they could do that, again, if it was up to me, I'd rather them not, but it could be a cool way to make this count. And the idea is, one of the nice things about Dawn Brothers Legacy Elements is, since it has a pseudo-sequel-ish Zenkaiger vibe, it's not really a sequel, but you know what I mean. But since it has that connection, it does create a more natural flow and reasoning as to why these things are happening. And if they can keep that going and maybe have some sort of link through X number of seasons they do this with, and that there's maybe like an ongoing background legacy plot that ties all this together, I think that would be nice. Some people have mentioned it would be a cool idea to have that as like, hey, maybe we draw a direct line from 45 to 50th anniversary with these seasons having anniversary elements that lead up to something big, whether it be a season or a movie or both. I don't like that idea like on a personal level just because I'm sick of the anniversary worshiping, and I hate the idea I really just hate the idea both for the franchise and the fandom that when we finish an anniversary, we're immediately thinking about the next anniversary series. Like, am I the only one that's like excited when we're done with an anniversary series to just have a normal series? Don't get me wrong, I would get excited for the next anniversary season, hypothetically, but I wouldn't immediately start making that my main focus. Anyway, that was a mini rant. My point with that is again, coming back to my personal taste, I don't like that idea in the sense that it's anniversary obsessive, but on the other hand, I do like the idea because at least it would give it meaning. So instead of having each season randomly having these legacy anniversary design elements in it, there would be something it was leading towards, and having some sort of connection would make it feel a little bit more natural. And if it was all leading somewhere, it could actually be pretty cool. Even if it's not my cup of tea, if we were to do like each season having an anniversary design element in each season leading up to 50 and you led up to a movie that was like a really cool big crossover movie or a combination of story or series of movies, that could be pretty cool. And for me, that would be the best way to approach it, so that it's, yes, obviously corporate selling toys reasons, but it would make things feel a lot more natural, and it would make it feel like it had more purpose. And that's the way I would like to see it go. Honestly, for me though, I would almost like to see it, instead of leading up to another anniversary season, I don't want to see them do another anniversary season until like 55. Like, wait. But maybe do like a trilogy of movies, like, you know, have the next 5 seasons, and then on the anniversary season, that would be a season that would also incorporate, the 50th season would incorporate anniversary elements as well, but then have like a trilogy of movies, like the Chodeno trilogy, that's all about this lead up of legacy stories. That would be really cool. I wouldn't mind that, again, just because it gives it purpose. So overall, I have mixed thoughts on it. Sentai's been going on so long, this is technically a change of pace for it, which in some ways is unique, but I just don't want to see Sentai lose its ability to refresh and run something into the ground that's cool and have me like taken out of the moment with the merchandise aspect too much. It's always going to be there, but it's sometimes nice when you can find a balance. But what do you guys think? What do you think about the idea of Sentai incorporating legacy designs and anniversary elements each season for the foreseeable future? Do you like that idea? Do you not? How would you handle it? How would you like to see it incorporated? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell. So notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.